You have to have thick skin and you got to have some money, because I've seen people literally put their life savings out there and hoping that they can get a license. Like people who were waiting for months having to pay rent and just keep paying rent without being able to open. Meanwhile, the guy next door is open illegally. And you're just like, why is he being able to do this and I can't do anything? So you have to be able to have thick skin and you have to be able to improvise, because anything could happen at any moment.
Welcome to the first episode of Flourishing in Cannabis podcast, where I bridge the gap between the plants and technology while focusing on the human aspects of the industry. My name is Vien Trinh. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Flourish Software. I'd like to introduce my first guest, dear friend of mine. He is the co-founder of the original New York brand, two-time Long Island winner for pre-rolls for Silver Haze, and now the founder of Inovysta Innovative Solutions. My man, my friend, my brother, Noomi Ra, hailing from Queens, New York. How you doing, my brother?
Excited to be here. Excited to do my first podcast also. Excited to be part of the first Flourish podcast, Flourishing together.
I know you're also a Flourish customer with Zizzle New York. You and I have been talking for about a year or so, coming into New York, visiting, hanging out. So wanted to have you as my first guest. We talked about this a while back. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? How you got started, a little bit about your background. Very interesting background you come from. So like an immigrant like myself, but I'll let you tell the story there.
I was born in Germany. I lived there till I was about 9 years old. My parents applied for a green card before I was even born. And then when I was 9, 10 years old, they got the green card and we decided to come to New York. And came straight to Jamaica, Queens first, which is the hood. And it was a huge culture shock for a kid like me, which didn't really see anything like it, but it made me learn New York very quickly and made me very street smart very quickly. And then also I'm half Pakistani. My father's Pakistani. He migrated to Germany. And I've been in New York pretty much since 96, on and off, been going back and forth. I did live in Pakistan for several years because I wasn't the nicest kid, according to my parents. Always getting into a little trouble here and there. The flower definitely had a little bit something to do with it.
Were you Lahore, or what part of Pakistan were you living?
Lahore, Pakistan.
Yeah, Lahore. Okay, all right.
Lahore. I lived out there for 5 years. That's where I learned Punjabi, Urdu, which actually tied us into our industry. My father was always telling me I should learn Punjabi, right? And I was like, Dad, what am I going to learn Punjabi for? Nobody in America speaks Punjabi. It's amazing to see how many operators in New York are Punjabi, Indian Punjabi, or Pakistani Punjabi. And when you speak the same language, it brings you together a lot quicker. It's been pretty interesting seeing how Punjabi comes in handy more than German does. I always thought German would come in handy more than Punjabi, but it's been the complete opposite.
That's really cool. Yeah, I being the black sheep, sometimes I felt like I got sent away to Canada to hang out with my family and not be at home. So I get that a little bit, but that's a very traditional thing to do. If things aren't going right somewhere else, give them a little bit of time and space and ship them off. Yeah, why don't you tell me a little bit about your transition from being in Pakistan, becoming a young adult, and your first experiences in the legacy space. And then we can roll that into going from legacy to license. Love to hear about that too, man.
In New York, especially in the neighborhood that I'm from in Queens, Bayside, New York, everybody over here has been in the industry since they were little kids. People used to come from all over the city to here because best pricing was in Queens. And there's a lot of competition over here. And being around that all the time, you just stumble into it by accident. You don't even I'm going to go do this, especially when you're like a little teenager, 12, 13, 14 years old. Basically, it started off with just doing the little things in the neighborhood and stuff like that. And then about, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we went into CBD because we're hopeful that eventually it's going to go federally legal. And if there's a way to get into this space legally, CBD would be the route. We started Zizzle in 2020 as a CBD company. We're doing CBD pre-rolls. And shortly after we were trying to really push for the CBD, Andrew Cuomo went through that sex scandal and decides to legalize cannabis out of nowhere. It was it's legal, guys. And we've been watching the market and seeing what's going on, and we never expected it to just happen like that. And also, boom, it was legalized. And then there was a good 2 years of the gray area, what I call it. where if you, anybody who was in New York, you saw a store on literally every single corner. None of them were licensed because there were no licenses yet. During that time, we applied then for the licensing, and we got our cultivation, distribution, and processing license. We just kept plugging away, and we were literally like, I think one of the first 5, 10 brands that were in legal stores, meaning 3, 4 stores that existed at the time because there was no stores. It's been quite interesting going from the legacy to legal, just mainly because all the regulation. The regulation didn't make any sense. Nothing made any sense. I become a regulation expert just because I've been studying it so much, trying to understand it, because it was so confusing. I remember in the first beginning of licensing, like if you were reading some of the stuff they were writing, I'm like, oh, are they talking about dispensaries? Are they talking about cultivators? It was just very confusing. And I have to tell you, speak to the OCM, they didn't even really know what they were doing. It's been quite the interesting learning experience. It's been a hell of a ride, I could say.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about that. You talk about the regulatory, the compliance requirements. Obviously, now you need to have a technology in place, so bridging that gap is part of it. But tell me about some of the experiences, learning about technology, learning about being compliant, being able to make sure that you're having all the inventory in the system correctly. And let's start there. We'll then go into some OCM BioTrack stuff.
In the beginning, the OCM was always saying we needed a seed to sales system, right? At the time, I had no idea what a seed to sales system is. So I actually got some random software that's like more for production. And like any software, you can customize it to how you want it to be. I did this whole thing and we had this whole opera system running, but the only thing that it didn't really do was do the seed part. It didn't do the cultivation part. At first, it was literally spreadsheets. That was our compliance, spreadsheets. Everything was on spreadsheets. And some of these spreadsheets, when you have 2,000 plants, there was 2,000 items and you have to stay on top of it. It's very time consuming, I would say. And then some friends of ours from the West Coast were using Flourish, and they brought the Flourish to us. I remember the Hardik from your team came to us, and he sat down in the office, and that was the beginning of our Flourish journey. And at first, it was really confusing until I finally realized it's how you want the software to be, because the software is very customizable. Because there's so many different aspects of the game, and it's basically customizable how you wanted to set it up for yourself. Which once you realize that, it makes life a lot easier. But before you realize it, it makes this, but you don't really know what you need. And then you just got to come to the conclusion that you're going to need what you need. And it's your way, how you want to set it up to make your business operations run easier and smoother. One of my favorite things was like at the original beginning, we were putting the labels with all the compliance stuff on it. We were printing it out ourselves. And it was just like, there was no account of it or anything. And then I remember I was calling the Flourish team. I'm like, oh, what can we do? They're like, yo, get a zebra printer. And then just getting that zebra printer that shoots out like thousands of them in like within an hour compared to the one that was doing like a couple hundred in an hour. And just having streamlining and making the process faster definitely made life happier because you're not doing the compliance stuff all the time. And then being able to scan things in, scan things out with the scanning system, running it like a real business. Most people in the space, they're used to not showing the numbers because we're supposed to show the numbers. Now it's no, we have to show everything, which to me, I love it because I can talk about it with my family and stuff like that. And, this is what I do. Before, this is like a very touchy subject for most people. Flourish definitely did help out a lot. I definitely appreciate that software. It made life a lot easier.
I appreciate it. And this, like I said, none of this is scripted. We're just going off the cuff here. And so really appreciate obviously being part of the Flourish fam. We noticed that was probably the biggest thing that we've noticed as operators, especially New York operators. The New York market started in California, went to New York, but the clientele is very different, very legacy, very old school, spreadsheets, relationships, still everything done via text message. So to get people and operators really start using the software, we were really excited, in early August, because this required people to really get on the software, start to get to use it, familiarize themselves, acclimate to the software, doing it and building it out and customizing it the way that you need as an operator. And to lead us into our next conversation, obviously we've seen that BioTrack has been put on a temporary hold by the OCM. There's a new partnership with Metrc, their biggest competitor, but also a very strong and trace system that is going to have most government contracts. So that has led to, I think, not as many people trying to get onto the software, even though it is full mandated for an electronic inventory management system to report up to the OCM. What are you doing to make sure that your clients, we'll get into that now, you're working with a new company, Inovysta, your company here. Why don't we talk about that? how you're helping your operators getting on board, making sure that they're being technically savvy, or making sure that you have the technical acumen and passing down the line to consult on behalf of these operators.
One of the biggest things I've noticed, even like I'm having friends of mine who are getting licenses right now, and a lot of people who are getting into the space right now. One of the number one things that they completely ignore and do not think about is the compliance aspect of what you're allowed and not to do. And then the software aspect, like people have to choose a software. I was asking people, like, oh, did you choose any software yet? And they're like, oh, what do you mean? What software? I'm like, receipt to sale. Like, how are you going to show what you're doing? And because it's a requirement by the Office of Risk Management. And most people don't even think about this. So I always tell people this is one of the first things you think about, because your whole business kind of gets run off of this one tool. It's where it starts off from. It's where your sales go through, where you're met. I'll tell you one of the things I just have to throw in there real quick. I remember like when we first started this whole thing, we were writing every manifest by hand with every little compliance thing. Everything was written by hand for every single delivery. And then when we got with Flourish, we're like, yo, is there a way to streamline this? They're like, yeah, sure. We're actually working on having a New York template that will just spit it right out for you. And then like literally when I asked that question, within 2 weeks, that was pretty much done on there. And like it saves a lot of time. And guess what that means? Saving money, because every little thing you do, you have to pay somebody to do it. And yes, these softwares cost some money, but they save you way more money in the long run. And to me, it was always, it's funny that nobody thinks about this stuff. Just because now it's like, oh yeah, we can do whatever we want. It's not how it works with any industry.
It's almost like the exact opposite, where you got to follow every little rule, regulation, and your margins are now razor thin, having to have software in place, having to have accounting, all these resources, all these tech stacks, all these tools. It is a very heavy lift, especially for the small mid-sized operators. You're not being run by MSOs. You don't have the ability to go out and raise capital or raise debt the way that you want to. So a lot of it is being done at the family friends level and whatever you've saved up. So a lot of respect for those of you and yourself, Noomi, that have really cut it and grinded it to get to where you are now. Like I said, you are now working with Inovysta, right? That is your new company. So why don't we talk a little bit about that and some of the problems some of your operators are having, and like what else you do? I know you're doing some marketing too, but I'm going to let you talk about your own company.
So yeah, with Inovysta, the reason why I started the company about a year ago is because I've noticed that a lot of people within this industry are legacy guys, or even just like real old school business guys. And women too. Like people who come from the regular business world, they don't really understand how you can market this product, because on social media platforms, Google, Meta, all that stuff, there's a lot of restrictions. And basically, I created Inovysta to be that gap to help people understand and be able to grow Instagram accounts and stuff like that without getting shut down and stuff like that. And then also at the same space, helping people get to the compliance aspect, right? Packaging. We do literally like any kind of finish, mylar bags, boxes, child resistant, obviously everything fully compliant. I actually started designing myself because of Zizzle, because trying to understand how to get all that little information that's required by compliance onto a product, especially like the pre-roll tube that we had is like this big. To put everything onto that little tiny thing, it was just quite hard. But from that, I learned a new skill, and I was like, oh, I'm learning all these skills. I want to try to figure out a way to turn them into money. I was never on the actual license. I was just a co-founder and partner with Zizzle. So I was like, since this is not 100% my ship, I can let my old partner, Zion, take care of that, and I can go branch off and do my own thing. For me, it's more exciting because my skills really come in with the technology aspect, and I really have a different understanding of it than most people do, is what I realized. So I want to help people. I want to help people flourish within this industry.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. I was thinking, I'm like, damn, I used to flourish for.
Like I said, I met Zion, great guy. We've worked together. You and me and him have talked together, gone out to dinner, shot the shit, which is awesome. But I know that you are, I want to go back a little bit more about the plan and that purity aspect of it that I think that you and I have discussed behind closed doors, that, you know, the way that you envision the future of products, the way that where Zizzle is going. And I said, I know that you're still somebody that is semi-involved in a capacity. Tell me about what Zizzle has been doing when it comes to their product lines. I think you guys have some new products. They have some new products coming out too. And then also we'll go.
Zizzle just dropped all the live solventless line. So we had a farm up in Liberty, New York, where we literally, the whole crop was immediately frozen. Then we can extract it for some live rosin. It's a purer product than most. If you look at distillate, for example, people always have to add terpenes and put stuff into it to make it taste somewhat decent that people can smoke it. I prefer that we just stick true to the plan. And I feel like that's where regulation should go, is let's keep it pure. Let's stop adding things to it, just like we've done with our food industry, where everything is fake. I see the same thing happening with cannabis, and we're regulating, for example, like one of the things that drove me the craziest is, oh, don't use neon colors, don't do this on your packaging. But what about what can I put inside the cannabis and not put inside and mix it with? Because there's a lot of operators in the legal space and the non-legal space. They're terping their weed and they're putting this and this. And it seems to be becoming the normal, which is like upsetting to me that it's normalized. Yeah, spray your weed. It's okay. Some people even prefer the sprayed stuff. And to me, that's the biggest sin. Like, we have such a beautiful plant that we can do such amazing things with. Why do we need to add anything into it? And Zizzle, for example, sticks to the purity. Like, all the flower, none of it is ever sprayed. We have original strains like the sour diesel, the silver haze. Then also, you know, some of the more West Coast flavors like lemon cherry gelato and stuff, and rainbow belts. But none of it is ever sprayed.
I know that you've probably worked with a lot of people on the West Coast in the past. From the legacy standpoint, what do you notice about the differences in the market between California and New York? Maybe personal preferences, just overall, just personal preferences when it comes to strains, comes to smoking preferences, how to smoke it, how to inhale, or is it more edibles? Just kind of want to get your sense. Obviously, there's tons of companies like Headset and Pistol that have all this data. Just somebody that's on the ground working this stuff in and out. I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
What I've noticed is California likes to be sedated, and the East Coast, New York, we like to be uppity and running up and about. That's why like sour diesel is such a big hit over here, because it gives you that little punch, but it doesn't knock you out. It just gives you that little buzz to keep going. That's one of the biggest things that I've noticed. The other thing that I've also noticed is if you go on the operator side, I believe that New York operators are way more innovative than California ones. Even if you look at the California ones, half of them are from New York. I feel like there's just something about New Yorkers and the competitiveness and the fast-paced lifestyle of New York that brings New York people to another level when it comes to a lot of things with the cannabis, just because it's such a competitive place. With competition comes innovation. Everybody wants to be better than the next person. I believe because of that, you're going to see a lot of really cool, innovative things coming out in the future. So maybe not so cool and more innovative from the financial aspect, but some of them I think we're going to have some really cool products. I've been talking to a lot of these smaller like operations, these micro licenses, small batch stuff. There's some people that they're working on some really cool stuff. And right now everybody's just like working through the kinks, figuring everything out. This is still, I realize like the New York 2-year-old baby right now, you know, like it's barely started walking, you know, I mean, it's still stumbling around. So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, even, when it starts going into some maturity, we're going to have some interesting stuff going on. But at the same time, also, you see every operator from the country all trying to come here because everybody is suspecting that this is the biggest market.
Correct. It will be. Yeah, you have.
I think so too, because you could just walk around the streets and you smell it that it is.
Oh yeah. And tourists, the tourism just alone, just in New York City or to Upper New York, and just all the beautiful foliage you have out there in the fall. It's a really cool. There has a lot of similarities to Chicago. Like I said, I'm from Chicago originally, but having the New York City and then branching out like Hudson Valley and going outside of New York City, it's a very different way of life. Just if you go from Chicago to Central Illinois, but you're right there. So much to do. Joe's Pizza. I'm always gonna get a slice when I'm out there. But like you said, you mentioned that you did give into where you see the industry going in 5-10 years. Where do you see yourself now with Inovysta, with what you're doing? Where do you usually see yourself in the next 5 years while building out this company?
Basically, I see doing a lot of people's packaging. That's one of my main things. I'm doing a lot of people's marketing. A lot of people don't want to deal with the marketing aspect. A lot of people don't want to deal with the packaging aspect. It's like dealing with the guys in China, or usually you're dealing with somebody in a different country. The guys that I would deal with, they have factories in Pakistan. I speak the language. I've been to their factories. I know exactly. What's actually really funny is my guys in Pakistan, they have German machines. And I was like, oh, the German Pakistani would find the German machines in Pakistan. The one that I randomly found at a trade show in Vegas seemed to have, and they're in the same city that I went to high school with when I lived over there. So it was just like funny parallel of a universe where I was like, oh, I guess this is one of the things I'm going to have to add to the things that Inovysta does. And then also a big thing is I think I'm going to be going global. Germany's going legal. And I think I'm just going to go around the world, and wherever it's going legal, I want to be involved.
That's awesome. That's super cool. As somebody that's gone legacy to license and now a little bit of ancillary too, do you have any recommendations for those individuals that are trying to get into the space, trying to flourishing in cannabis, so is what we say.
The number one thing that I would recommend
Yes.
is you have to have thick skin. Because, for example, right now, the Office of Cannabis Management is telling certain licensees of dispensaries that they might have to relocate because of proximity orders. And like anything could happen. One, you have to have thick skin and you got to have some money. Because I've seen people literally put their life savings out there and hoping that they can get a license. Like people who were waiting for months having to pay rent and just keep paying rent without being able to open. Meanwhile, the guy next door is open illegally. And you're just like, why is he being able to do this and I can't do anything? So you have to be able to have thick skin and you have to be able to improvise because anything could happen at any moment and you gotta be quick on your feet. And but if you really love this and you really want to be in it, I think anybody can be a part of it.
You couldn't have said it any better. Being in the cannabis tech space for the last 4 years, there's never a dull day in cannabis. You're always seeming like you're reacting all the time, and you got to be able to pivot, and you got to be able to do multiple jobs, wear multiple hats. I think that's also something that I would recommend. Obviously, I haven't had the experiences that you have, but being able to dive into new material like you've done, regulate, learning the regulations, learning the compliance piece, become versatile and learn a little bit of everything and be able to touch the plant, dig your feet in the sand, really is something that I think that makes a lot of sense. I can agree with you on that one for sure, Matt. Noomi, you've had a lot of great points. I just want to pause for a minute. For all of you that have liked what you've heard today, press the like button, press subscribe. We love your support. Hey, Noomi, we're about to wrap up, man. This has been so much fun. Be my first guest. I'm honored to have you on. Someone with such great experience. Someone has such a great background. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, when did you fall in love with cannabis?
I could probably take it back to when I was like 14 years old. We had a friend of ours who had epilepsy. She used to get seizures randomly, right? One day she decided to steal some of the weed from her dad. We rolled up a J and we smoked it. We didn't notice anything that night, but then like over the next 2-3 months, she came to me one day and she was like, Noomi, that whenever I smoke, I'm starting to notice I don't get these seizures. And I was like, how is that? And then like with a little bit of research and like a little bit of trial and error, we told her to start writing it down and stuff like that. And she used to have like throughout the week, I think 5 to 15 seizures. And it went down to no seizures. And especially because she had a child too afterwards. And she was telling me that if she never discovered that weed helps her, she wouldn't have been able to take care of her kid. And just to see that this plant that was so shunned upon at the time can do such positivity made me really want to love the plant and really want to learn more about it. So I would say that was the moment when I fell in love with this plant.
Thank you for sharing such a deep story, man. For those operators that are looking for marketing, packaging, maybe some regulatory help, how can they get a hold of the Noomi Rana?
There's a couple of different ways. You can find me on Instagram. My personal Instagram is Noomi. You can also find me on my company Instagram, Inovysta. That's Inovysta, one word. Contact me on the social media, or you can go visit our website, click on the free consultation, and I'll probably be the one that's contacting you back anyway. And that's Inovysta.com. Yeah, if anybody needs any help with anything, consultations, packaging, marketing, web design, websites, all in one system, which have everything clicking together, I can make it happen.
Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Flourishing in Cannabis. For everyone, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay high responsibly.